Welcome to the HR Empowerment Podcast, where we will uncover strategies and new insights from HR professionals who discuss up-to-date regulations, best practices, and the most pressing topics like diversity and equity, leadership, dealing with difficult situations, and much more that affect your bottom line and business. Thanks for joining us.
Hey everybody, welcome back. We are here talking about the Beekeeper's Guide to Transformative Leadership overall, and we are with our experts, Mike and Katie. Hi, how you doing? Any bees out there?
Hi, Wendy. Good to see you.
Yeah, you too. That was just amazing analogy in our last session there. So thank you so much for that. I do want to jump into more about pollinating success. We talked about the queen already, and I was hoping you were getting to the end of that, going, okay, you combine them two together because they can't live without the queen, but now they can't live without pollinating. So talk to me about, what do you mean by, pollinating success? What are the methods to drive teams to pollinate success?
Yeah. So, we heard Mike talk a bit about, this concept of the art of learning to be proximal, which is, keeping learning and unlearning at the heart, right? The center of what we do. And so we know that bees go to the center of the flower, right? To pollinate. And so we make this kind of message akin to when we think about pollination and growth, how are we creating an environment where we're encouraging other pollinators, right? And so, let me start with just a discussion about culture. It's easy for people to point fingers, right? And look to leadership or to one person or two people and say, he or she is responsible for the culture. And there's a lesson there in enabling, right? And encouraging everyone to be culture builders. But in order for us to do that, we have to go through a process of understanding, right? Alignment of personal goals to organizational goals, right? Of personal values to organizational values. And so it opens up a discussion, right? Of that connection of how we show up and we align with our purpose. And so oftentimes we don't think about, right, creating a charter or the opportunity to bring people together to talk about why we do what we do, right? Where value creation exists. And then encouraging the opportunity for everyone, right, to have agency over being a culture builder. And so instead of coming with a problem-focused lens, right, we say choose a solutions-focused lens, right? In those B mindsets, we're coming instead of complaining, instead of full of problems, we're coming with ideas and opportunities to be part of solutions. And so there's an engagement of pulling people in, right, to help write and author those pages of our organizational story instead of the transactional, right, come in, right, kind of go through your process, check out. And so I think, in the work that we do, Mike and I talk to a lot of organizations that don't even think, right, to kind of take that step to engage, right, their people in the process. Mike, do you want to add anything there?
No, so well said. And I love the question on values and the content on values, because I think that's where we see teams and organizations like really break down, right, is when we don't know each other's core values personally. We may know our company's mission, our company's values, really important. But if we don't have an understanding of, if I don't have an understanding of Katie's values or my team's values, then when those start getting compromised or start doing something to impact those values, that's when we see, team dynamics suffer. So I think it's important for, teams and our HR function, frankly, to just think about like, okay, we're doing this organizationally, but how are we bringing this down to the team level, understanding individual values and allowing people to share those out freely so they can, encourage different behaviors on the team and support each other through different lenses.
Organizations with strong purpose-driven values experience 30% higher levels of innovation and a 40% higher retention rate compared to those without clearly defined values. A focus on value identification and culture building drives not only employee engagement, but helps foster a solution-focused environment. And that contributes to long-term success, just like we're learning today. Back to you.
I love it. I am a huge values person. I have courses and I've written a book on, and I have step-by-step instructions on how to create or dust off your company values so that you can hold people accountable for their behavior. Because as an HR consultant, when my phone rings with one of my clients that is, I'm their consultant, it's not because things are going well. It's usually because somebody's acting a fool. And I say, hey, remember we have those values. Let's point to that and make sure we remind our employees of how we want them to act and behave in the organization. But Mike, I love what you were saying about, people's personal values. And I do find that often companies, they just kind of keep their hands out. They're like, nope, you keep that away from us. How do you give our listeners some advice if they are dealing with an executive in their organization that says, they may not say it this way, but basically is acting like, I don't really care about their personal values. They only have to follow our company values. So how do you overcome that?
Yeah, such a good question. I mean, I think it goes down to that vulnerability and authenticity, right? I know there are people who kind of see things through their lens. It's a lot of self-work, right? I mean, many of us may be familiar with some of our personality assessments like Myers-Briggs or, DISC. And, if we're not doing that kind of work to self-reflect and say, hey, what is beneath the surface? How do I show up? What informed who I am today? And sharing that outwardly, that goes down to that environment. Most companies aren't willing and able to do that. But if the environment's not right for people to break down those walls, then oftentimes they will hold their values back. They won't share them freely. And then that will impact organizational culture. And so it goes down to how are we creating that environment where our leaders are allowing for this diversity of thought and voice, which really does come down to people's value systems and personalities.
Yeah, it really is. And JC just mentioned me too, it's about psychological safety as well. So feeling safe, even as a candidate, saying, oh, look at this company's values, I want to be part of that. But then feeling even safer as an employee to say they actually care about me. I'm part of the bee colony.
Yeah. And Wendy, what you're touching on and what Mike alluded to is when we think about inclusive leadership, we are rounding out the circle to welcome surface and deep level diversity. And that deep level diversity is our personality and behavioral attributes, our core values, our attitude formation, right? And so we have to create the space where people can unapologetically and authentically show up as themselves, right? To be pollinators.
I love it. Thank you for that. Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening to episode 3 of our 5-part series on the Beekeeper's Guide to Transformative Leadership. In our next episode, episode 4, we're going to be talking about leading with purpose, which we just set that up to go into. So thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for joining the HR Empowerment Podcast, brought to you by Aurora Training Advantage. We hope you've gained new insight and strategies to navigate the HR profession. We look forward to you joining us again on the HR Empowerment Podcast.